trivia question, what program do Jedi use to open up PDF files? Adobe One Kenobi. All joking aside, Star Wars is one of the most popular film, book, and comic book franchises of all time. Because it's one of my favorites, it's what we're going to be using to analyze some of Scott McCloud's comic book writing and artistic techniques. Scott McCloud is an author and an artist who advises other comic book artists on how to get the most out of their writing skills and techniques in connecting with writers. Specifically, we're going to be taking a look at closure, one of McCloud's theories that he has when writing comic books. Closure is how your mind connects the actions of one panel to the next within a comic strip. And specifically within that closure, we're going to be looking at action and time. The first principle McCloud mentions is the time frame bleed. Within each comic panel, there's usually something that catches our eye or moves around. And in this instance, it's the comic book bleed, where the frame either runs off the page or is half or non-existent entirely. Having a bleed or running off the page entirely affects time because our mind is used to a frame and closing a panel. When we remove that frame, time bleeds off into space, either to emphasize a moment or to exaggerate the period of time indefinitely or prolonged. The second principle that McCloud covers is the topic of motion within a time frame. Because time stands still, an artist has to get creative and find a way to show movement within that pane. We have the blurry hand that moves across the screen, which is kind of like this blurry PDF, or we have a streak with an action at the end, or a simple straight line motion that shows the hand moving in one direction. In our Star Wars comic, the first pane is a battle between Luke and our villain. The villain is holding some kind of device here that we later find out turns into a flame whip, and we don't ever see him activate it or use it, but we know that within these lines, he's pulling out the whip. We don't just assume that it comes from nowhere. And we can see this through context clues and motion going back and forth in their conversation. Also, take a moment to notice that in this pane with Luke, where he's declaring that he doesn't have a blaster, instead he's going to use his lightsaber, that there is no pane across the side. Due to this lack of pane, our moment of time with Luke is infinite / and or prolonged, depending on how you read the book. And because it's taking emphasis to notice that he does not have a blaster, he's unusual, he's a Jedi, and will use his lightsaber. The next pane is our action scene, which focuses on movement within the panel. We can see that once he takes out his lightsaber, he's using it against the whip. We know there's not actually 4 lightsabers within the pane, but instead Luke is actually moving upward and attacking the whip. Same thing here, where we have another 5 lightsabers moving around. And if we look at the next pane, we see that the villain's hand is on the ground, implying that Luke cut it off, even though we don't ever see that within the panel. The final example is here with the lock. It's showing our lightsaber moving in a downward motion. We can see the streak lines, implying that it's going down, and the product of the lock being broken. Finally, in the last pane, we have a bleed, where there is no border and it takes up the whole page, signifying immensity and timelessness. This is Luke's triumphant moment. People are looking up to him. He's the hero of the comic. Due to these time bleeds and motion blurs, our sense of time has been skewed and also put into place very specifically, and that is the main use of closure that McCloud takes us over.